The sound of gravel crunching beneath my tires still echoes in my head, sometimes sharp, rhythmic, almost impatient. That night, I wasn't planning to drive anywhere. I'd come home late from work, exhausted, ready to rest. But one message changed everything. It was a simple text from my daughter, Anna. "Dad, can you please check on Liam tonight? He's been quiet lately and I'm worried." Liam, my son-in-law. A man I'd once proudly called family. The one who promised to take care of my little girl when I walked her down the aisle. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe Anna was overthinking. She always did that when things got stressful at work. But something in her message, the tone, the hesitation, made me uneasy. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and decided to check on him. It was almost midnight. The roads were quiet, that kind of eerie silence that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. When I turned into Liam's street, everything looked normal. The porch light of his house glowed faintly yellow against the darkness. His car was parked out front. But there was something else, something that made my stomach twist. Another car, silver, familiar, sitting right near the gate. At first, I thought maybe one of his friends had come by. But then the headlights hit the license plate, and my heart stopped. It was my wife's car. I blinked, once, twice. No, it couldn't be. There had to be another explanation. My wife, Clara, was supposed to be at her sister's house that night, an overnight visit she'd told me about earlier in the day. She'd even packed a bag. I parked across the street and turned off my engine, my hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. I just sat there staring at that silver car, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. That's when the front door opened. Liam stepped out first. He wasn't alone. Behind him was Clara, my wife, my partner of 30 years. Her hair was messy, her laugh quiet, but too familiar, the kind she only gave when she felt comfortable. And she was comfortable there. I froze. It felt like my entire chest collapsed in on itself. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just watched as they stood on the porch too close. She touched his arm. He smiled at her. And in that single moment, the world I thought I knew, the family I'd built, started to crumble. For a long while, I didn't know what to do. My mind raced between denial and fury. Maybe she came to check on him too. Maybe this was something innocent. But deep down, I knew. There was no reason for her to be here. Not this late. Not like that. The porch light flickered, and as if fate itself wanted me to see the truth, she leaned in, whispered something, and he laughed softly before pulling her into an embrace. That's when I stopped hoping for explanations. I clenched the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Every second I sat there, the ache inside me grew heavier. My daughter trusted this man. I trusted my wife. And both of them were betraying that trust right in front of my eyes. I don't know how long I sat there, 10 minutes, maybe more, but eventually I saw Clara walk back to her car. She looked around carefully before getting in. Her face showed no guilt, no hesitation. Liam waved at her like a lover saying goodbye. She drove off. Past my parked car, I ducked low instinctively, heart pounding, afraid she might see me. She didn't. When she disappeared into the night, I finally turned the key, started my engine, and followed at a distance, my thoughts dark and tangled. The drive home was a blur, streetlights smeared into streaks of gold. I kept replaying what I'd seen, her hand on his arm, his smile, that shared moment. By the time I reached our house, I was shaking. The air inside felt too quiet, too familiar. Her slippers were by the door. The scent of her perfume lingered faintly in the hallway. She'd been here earlier that evening, pretending everything was normal. I sat in the dark living room for hours, staring at the wedding photo on the wall. 2 smiling faces full of love, promise, youth. It felt like looking at strangers. At around 3 a.m., I heard the soft click of the front door. She walked in, carrying her overnight bag, tiptoeing as if trying not to wake me. But I was wide awake. "Clara," I said quietly. She froze mid-step. "Oh, you're still up," she said, forcing a calm smile. "I thought you'd be asleep. Where were you?" Her eyes flickered just for a second. "I told you, honey." "My sister's," I cut her off. "Your sister called me. Said she hasn't seen you in days." Her face went pale. For a long moment, silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Then she exhaled slowly, her voice trembling. "John, please let me explain." But I didn't want explanations. I wanted truth. Explain what? I asked. Why my son-in-law's house had your car parked out front at midnight. Why you were with him. Her lips parted, but no words came out. That silence had said more than anything she could have confessed. I stood up, my voice steady but cold. I saw you, Clara. Her eyes filled with tears. It's not what you think, then what is it? I snapped. Because from where I stood, it looked exactly like betrayal. The room fell still again. The kind of stillness that feels permanent, like time itself stops out of respect for the pain that's unfolding. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean for it to happen, and that sentence broke something deep inside me. I didn't shout. I didn't throw things. I just walked out. Because sometimes, the silence after betrayal screams louder than anger ever could. That night, I drove aimlessly through the city, watching lights blur through my tears. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? Not just to me, but to Anna, to our family. The next morning felt unreal. The sunlight crept through the curtains like it was trying to remind me the world was still spinning, but mine wasn't. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara standing beside Liam's porch light, her face glowing with a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. When the clock hit 7 a.m., I was still sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My phone buzzed a message from Anna. Dad, did you check on Liam? He didn't pick my calls again. I'm getting worried. Her words hit differently this time. She didn't know. She had no idea that the man she trusted, the one she shared a home with, had already destroyed everything sacred between us. I wanted to protect her from the truth, but part of me burned with rage. How long had this been happening? Was she the only one living in the dark? I typed back a short reply, he's fine. I'll talk to you later. Then I threw the phone on the table and buried my face in my hands. For the first time in 30 years, I didn't know who my wife really was. That day, Clara acted as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed softly in the kitchen, even asked how I slept. Her voice was calm, practiced the way people speak when they've rehearsed their lies. I didn't answer. I just watched her. The woman standing in front of me was a stranger wearing my wife's face. Finally, she turned toward me, her smile fading when she saw my expression. John, she said softly, I'm sorry. I really am. Sorry? I repeated, my voice low. You betrayed me with our daughter's husband, Clara. You didn't just cheat on me, you destroyed a family. Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't find pity. Not anymore. I didn't plan it, she said, shaking. It just happened. We were both lonely. You were always busy. And don't you dare, I cut her off. Don't you dare blame me for your choice. Her lips quivered. You don't understand, John. He listened. He cared. He's my son-in-law. I shouted, the words echoing through the house like thunder. He was supposed to respect our family, not, I couldn't even finish the sentence. The disgust, the heartbreak, it was all too much. Clara sank into a chair, sobbing quietly. But I just stood there, frozen, a storm raging inside, too loud to feel compassion. The next few days passed in silence. We lived under the same roof, but in different worlds. She slept in the guest room. I spent my nights pacing the living room, staring at the wall, trying to piece together how my life had fallen apart overnight. And then came the real dilemma, Anna. What was I supposed to tell her? That her husband and her mother were betraying her behind her back? No father should ever have to carry that kind of truth. But fate, as cruel as it is, had other plans. 3 days later, Anna called again, this time crying. Dad, something's wrong with Liam. He's distant. Avoids me, keeps lying about where he's going. I feel like I'm losing him. I closed my eyes. The irony was unbearable. She was describing the same signs I'd ignored with Clara. Anna, I said softly, maybe you should come home for a few days. Clear your head, but why? Is something wrong? She asked, voice trembling. I hesitated. Just come home, sweetheart. Please. That evening, Clara tried to speak again. John, I'll tell her, she said, her tone quiet but determined. She deserves the truth. I stared at her. You're not telling her anything. Not yet. Why? She whispered. Because you still think you can protect her? No, I said coldly. Because I want to see what he does next. She frowned. What do you mean? I leaned closer. You and Liam think you fooled everyone. But I've seen how these things work. Secrets don't stay buried for long. And when they surface, I want him to face what he's done. Not as a husband or a son-in-law, but as a man. Clara looked shaken. You're scaring me. Good, I said. Because, for the first time, you should be scared. That night, I followed Liam again. It was almost 11 p.m. He left his house quietly, checking over his shoulder like someone with something to hide. I trailed him at a distance. He drove to a small cafe on the edge of town, one that stayed open late. Through the window, I saw him sit at a corner table, and soon after, Clara joined him. She looked nervous. He looked impatient. I parked across the street and listened through a small voice recorder app I'd hidden a tiny device in her purse that morning. I didn't want to believe she'd use it, but I needed proof. When the audio started streaming through my phone, my stomach twisted. Clara's voice, John knows. He saw us, Liam. He knows everything. Liam, are you serious? When? Clara, that night. He saw my car. I tried to lie, but Liam. Damn it. This is bad. What are we going to do? There was a pause. Then Clara's voice broke. I don't know. I can't lose everything, Liam. Not after what we've done. Liam, we'll figure it out. Just keep him calm. Don't let him tell Anna. Keep me calm. As if I were the threat, not them. That was the moment the rage inside me turned into something colder. I didn't want to lash out anymore. I wanted justice. But I wanted it smart, calculated. The kind that leaves scars deeper than words. The next morning, I began to plan. I gathered every photo, message, and recording I had all proof of their affair. But instead of sending it to Anna, I decided to wait. Why? Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't confrontation, it's exposure. It's watching people destroy themselves with their own lies. I acted normal, calm, polite. Clara began to believe I'd moved on. She even started trying to be friendly again, cooking, smiling, pretending. Liam, too, thought things were settling. He started messaging Clara more carelessly, visiting her again. Each meeting gave me more proof, more leverage. Weeks passed. One evening, Anna came home unexpectedly. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. Dad, I can't do it anymore, she said. Liam doesn't even look at me the same. I think he's seeing someone. I felt my chest tighten. The daughter I'd tried so hard to protect was standing in front of me, broken by the same man who broke me. You're right, I said quietly. He is seeing someone. Her eyes widened. Who? I looked away. You'll know soon enough. That night, I sent Liam a message from an unknown number. We know what you've done. Meet me tomorrow at 8 p.m. at the cafe, or the truth goes public. No name, no signature. He replied within minutes. Who is this? I didn't answer. The trap was set. When the next evening came, I watched from across the street again. Liam sat nervously in the same corner booth, looking around, checking his phone every few seconds. Then, right on cue, Clara walked in. She looked confused, too. She clearly thought he had called her there. And then 5 minutes later, Anna arrived. She froze in the doorway. For a moment, no one moved. Liam's eyes went wide, Clara gasped, and Anna just stood there staring at them both, realization slowly dawning across her face. She didn't need me to explain. The picture in front of her was enough. Her mother and husband together, in the same place, looking guilty and terrified. I watched through the glass as Anna's expression changed from confusion to heartbreak to fury. She slapped Liam across the face so hard it echoed, even from where I sat. How could you? She shouted. You betrayed me and my father. Clara reached for her, sobbing. Anna, please don't touch me. Anna screamed. You're both disgusting. People in the cafe began staring. Someone pulled out a phone. Liam tried to calm her down, but she shoved him away and stormed out. Clara followed, crying, but Anna didn't stop. And just like that, everything came crashing down. I stayed in the car, silent, watching. The revenge wasn't fiery or loud. It was quiet, the kind that tears apart illusions and leaves nothing standing. When I returned home that night, the house felt empty. Clara hadn't come back. Anna hadn't called. But, for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Sometimes justice doesn't need anger, just truth, revealed at the right moment. The day after everything came crashing down, silence became my closest companion. The house that once echoed with laughter, the smell of Clara's morning coffee, the sound of Anna's voice when she'd visit it was all gone. In its place was a stillness so heavy that even the ticking clock sounded like judgment. I sat on the couch, staring at the same spot on the wall. My mind kept replaying what happened at the cafe: Anna's tears, Clara's desperate face, Liam's shameful silence. That moment should have felt victorious. Justice had been served. But the truth, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in the ashes of everything I'd ever loved. By noon, my phone buzzed. It was Anna. "Dad," she said, her voice shaking. "Can I come over?" Of course, I replied immediately. An hour later, she arrived, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She didn't say a word when she walked in. She just collapsed into my arms, sobbing like a child. "I can't believe it," she whispered. My own husband and Mama held her tighter, my own eyes burning. "No one deserves that kind of betrayal, Anna, no one." We sat there for a long time, saying nothing, just the sound of her crying softly against my shoulder. Finally, she pulled away, wiping her face. "How long did you know?" I hesitated. A while. But I needed to be sure before I said anything. Her expression hardened. "You shouldn't have protected them. You should have told me." "I wanted to," I said quietly. "But I also wanted you to see the truth yourself. Because when lies are revealed by someone else, people always doubt. But when you witness them, there's no going back." She looked down, silent. Then she whispered, "I feel so stupid." "Don't," I told her gently. "Love makes fools out of all of us at some point. What matters is what you do next." That evening, Clara came home. The air grew cold the second she stepped through the door. She froze when she saw Anna sitting on the couch. Anna whispered. "Don't," Anna snapped, standing up. "Don't say my name like you still have the right." Clara's lips trembled. "Please, I save it," Anna said bitterly. "You're my mother. You were supposed to protect me, not stab me in the back." Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Anna. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" Anna shouted. "Sleeping with my husband isn't a mistake, it's a choice." I wanted to intervene, to calm them both down, but this was a storm that needed to pass. Sometimes truth has to scream before it can settle. Clara fell to her knees, sobbing. "I lost everything. Your father, you, my family. Please, please forgive me." Anna shook her head slowly. "You didn't just lose us, Mom. You threw us away." She grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Clara stayed on the floor, crying, her shoulders shaking. I didn't move. After a moment, she looked up at me. "Is this what you wanted, John? To destroy me?" I met her eyes. "No, Clara, I just wanted the truth to do what I couldn't." Days turned into weeks. Anna moved in with me temporarily while she started divorce proceedings against Liam. Liam tried calling her at first, messages, voicemails, desperate apologies, but she never replied. She blocked him everywhere. Clara, meanwhile, left the house and moved in with her sister. She tried calling me too, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. But the gossip didn't stop. In small towns, news travels faster than reason. People whispered. Friends stopped visiting. The perfect family image we'd built for decades shattered overnight. And strangely, I didn't care anymore. I'd already lost everything that mattered. The rest didn't scare me. One afternoon, as Anna and I sat quietly having coffee, she asked, "Do you think people like that ever regret it? What they did?" I looked at her for a long moment. Regret, yes. But it's not the kind that fixes anything. It's the kind that haunts you when you realize too late what you destroyed. She nodded slowly, staring at her cup. "I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're stronger than you think," I told her. "You walked through hell, and you're still standing." She smiled weakly. "Maybe. But I don't know how to trust again." "Then don't rush it," I said gently. "Trust doesn't come from forgetting, it comes from surviving." Meanwhile, Liam's life began to crumble too. I didn't have to lift a finger, his own actions did the job. Anna's lawyer was sharp. She presented the affair in court, backed with evidence. Liam's reputation in town fell apart. The man who once strutted with pride now avoided everyone's eyes. He called me once, only once. I answered, curious to hear what he'd say. "Mr. Parker," he said, his voice trembling. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't speak. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued. I lost control. Clara and it wasn't supposed to happen. Finally, I spoke. You took everything from my daughter. From me. And now you want to talk about control? He sighed shakily. I know. I deserve what's happening. I paused, then said, No, Liam. You don't just deserve it, you earned it. And I hung up. Clara tried one last time, too. A handwritten letter appeared on my doorstep one evening. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. John, I know nothing I say can undo what I've done. I see your face every night when I close my eyes and the shame eats me alive. I betrayed the only man who ever loved me selflessly. I destroyed our family and I don't even know why anymore. If you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, not for me, but for your own peace, please try. I'm leaving town for a while, maybe forever. But I wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you. I just stopped loving myself enough to be worthy of you. Clara, I folded the letter and stared out the window for a long time. Part of me felt pity. Another part still burned with anger. But above all, I felt empty. Forgiveness? Maybe one day. But not now. Some wounds need silence more than healing. Months passed. The seasons changed. The pain dulled, but it never disappeared. Anna slowly began to rebuild her life. She got her own apartment, started painting again, and even laughed sometimes. Seeing her smile again became my only comfort. One evening, she came over for dinner. We ate quietly, sharing small talk, pretending things were normal. But before she left, she hugged me and whispered, You know, Dad, you were right. The truth really does set you free, but it also leaves scars. I smiled faintly. Scars remind us we survived. She nodded. I'll never forget what they did, but I'll never let it define me. And for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of peace. A few days later, I drove past the cafe where it all fell apart. The same corner table was still there empty now. Funny how life moves on, even when your heart doesn't. I parked for a moment, turned off the engine, and just sat there. The memories came back like ghosts, not to haunt, but to remind. And as I stared through the glass, I whispered to myself, Sometimes the people we love the most become the lessons we never forget. Then I started the car and drove away, leaving behind not just the cafe, but the version of myself that once begged for answers. That night, as I lay in bed, I finally understood something. Revenge had never been the goal, clarity was. Because when truth comes to light, it doesn't just expose others, it reveals you. Who you become when you've been broken, that's your real story. Clara and Liam had destroyed everything. But in doing so, they gave me something unexpected: freedom. Freedom from lies, from pretending, from carrying love that no longer existed. And in that quiet, lonely peace, I made a promise to myself never again to fight for people who wouldn't fight for me. 6 months had passed since everything fell apart. 6 long, quiet months of learning how to live in the ruins of what once was. The seasons had changed. Winter gave way to spring, but inside me it still felt like November. Cold, gray, and hollow. I'd grown used to the silence. It was strange how comforting it had become. No late-night arguments. No fake laughter over dinner. Just peace-heavy, unbroken peace. But peace can be deceptive, because sometimes, right when you think the storm is over, the echoes come back. That morning, I was reading the newspaper when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and for a second my heart stopped. Clara stood there. Her once bright eyes were dim, her hair tied back carelessly, her face pale but not from makeup. From guilt. From exhaustion. She looked like a ghost of the woman I used to know. "John," she said softly, almost as if saying my name hurt. I didn't reply. I just stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated, then entered. The house felt smaller with her in it, full of unspoken words and memories that refused to die. She looked around, her eyes lingering on the family photos still hanging on the wall. One in particular, Anna's wedding day. She looked away quickly. "I wasn't sure you'd let me in," she said finally. "I almost didn't," I replied flatly. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "I needed to see you. One last time." We sat across from each other in the living room, the silence thick enough to choke on. I studied her face. Time had carved regret into her features. There was no denial, no excuses, just a woman haunted by the choices she couldn't undo. Finally, she spoke. "I've been going to therapy," she said quietly, "trying to understand why I did what I did, why I destroyed everything. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. I thought I was lonely," she continued. "You were always working, always focused on providing for us. And I convinced myself that meant you didn't see me anymore." Her voice trembled. "But the truth is, I stopped seeing you. I stopped seeing what we had." She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I needed to say it. I am sorry, John, truly sorry." I sighed, leaning back. "Do you think sorry can rebuild the years you tore apart? Do you think it can erase what Anna saw?" "No," she whispered, "but it's all I have left." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked softly between us, counting the seconds of a love long dead. Then I said quietly, "Clara, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed the family we built, the daughter who idolized you, the life we built together brick by brick." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know. Do you?" I asked sharply. "Because if you did, you wouldn't have looked at our son-in-law the way you did." Her shoulders shook. "I hate myself every day for it. You think I don't wake up wishing I could undo it all?" I looked away. "But you can't." "No," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't." After a long silence, I asked the question that had haunted me for months. "Why him, Clara? Of all people, why him?" She buried her face in her hands. "I don't know, John. Maybe because he reminded me of the younger version of you, the one who used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered. I was chasing a ghost, not a man. I felt something twist inside me, not anger this time, just exhaustion. You didn't just destroy a marriage, Clara. You destroyed a family." "I know," she said again. "And I'll live with that for the rest of my life." We sat in silence again. And then she reached into her bag and pulled out a set of divorce papers. "I signed them," she said quietly, placing them on the table. "I'm moving to another state. My sister offered me a place. I thought it was time to stop haunting this house." I nodded slowly, my chest tight. There was no fight left to have, no forgiveness left to give. Just the quiet acceptance of something that had already ended long ago. Before she left, she looked around one last time. Her eyes fell on our wedding photo by the mantelpiece. "I was happy once," she whispered. "So was I said. And for the first time in months, our eyes met not as lovers, not as enemies, but as two people mourning the same thing. The life that could have been. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Goodbye, John. Goodbye, Clara." When the door closed behind her, it was final. The chapter was over. The house felt emptier than ever, but somehow lighter too. Weeks later, I got a message from Anna. "Dad, Mom called me. She said she's leaving town. Are you okay?" I replied simply, "Yeah, I'm okay, sweetheart. Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" I paused before replying. "I don't know, but I think I'm done hating her," because that was the truth. Hatred had burned through me for months, and all it left behind was ash. There was no point keeping a fire alive that only consumed me. Meanwhile, Liam's world had collapsed completely. Anna's divorce finalized, and he lost nearly everything in the settlement. His business partner left him. His reputation was in ruins. He'd gone from hosting lavish parties to moving into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. I heard about it from mutual acquaintances, small-town gossip that made its way around eventually. One day, I saw him by chance. At the grocery store, of all places. He looked thinner, older, humbled by the weight of his own actions. When he saw me, he froze. I could see the guilt written across his face. He started to approach, but I held up my hand. "Don't," I said firmly. "We have nothing left to say." He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I understand." As I turned to leave, he called after me. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I didn't turn around. "Then live like it," I said quietly. And walked away. Life began to move again slowly, quietly. Anna started volunteering at a local art center, finding joy in teaching kids how to paint. Watching her smile again was like seeing sunlight after a long storm. One evening, she came over for dinner, and as we sat on the porch, she said something that stayed with me. "You know, Dad-Mom called me again." She sounded different, calmer. Maybe she's finally finding peace. I nodded. Maybe we all are. She smiled sadly. It's strange, isn't it? How the people who hurt us the most end up teaching us the biggest lessons. I looked at her, proud. Pain has a way of shaping us, Anna. But what you do after the pain, that's what defines you. Months later, I found myself back at the lake, the same one where Clara and I used to go fishing on weekends. The water was still, the wind soft, the sun setting in orange streaks across the sky. For the first time in years, I didn't feel bitterness, just peace. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was understanding. Sometimes, the people we love are not meant to stay. They're meant to teach about strength, resilience, and the boundaries we forgot to protect. I threw a small stone into the lake, watching the ripples spread outward, wider and wider. That's what betrayal does, it sends ripples through your life. But eventually they fade. And what's left is clarity. That night I wrote a letter. Not to send, but to release. Clara, for a long time I hated you. I blamed you for every sleepless night, every tear our daughter shed. But now I see it differently. Maybe we were both lost, just in different ways. You wanted to be seen. I wanted to be respected. And somewhere in between, we forgot to love. I won't forget what happened, but I won't let it define the rest of my life. You broke something in me, yes, but you also reminded me what it means to rebuild. Goodbye, for real this time. John, I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and turned off the light. A week later, I visited Anna again. She had a small art exhibit showing her latest work. One painting caught my attention, a woman standing on a cliff, looking at the horizon. Behind her, the storm clouds were clearing. I asked her, "What's this one called?" She smiled. It's called freedom. And for the first time in a long while, I understood what that word really meant. They say time heals everything, but what they don't tell you is that healing doesn't come quietly. It comes in waves. Some days you float. Other days you drown. It had been nearly a year since Clara left town. The house didn't echo with pain anymore, it just felt lived in. I'd started to find rhythm again, morning walks, reading by the window, small coffee shop visits where no one knew my story. For the first time, I could breathe without remembering the taste of betrayal. But life, as it always does, had one more surprise waiting for me. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was gentle, the streets quiet, the kind of peace you only notice after chaos. I was at the local market, buying some fruits, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Dad?" I turned, and there she was. Anna, smiling, holding a small boy's hand. "Anna?" I smiled, surprised. "You didn't tell me you were coming." She laughed, brushing her hair back. "I wanted to surprise you. We moved back, actually. I got a new job here." My heart lifted. "Really? That's wonderful. And who's this little man?" The boy peeked out shyly from behind her. "This is Ethan," she said softly. "I adopted him 3 months ago." I knelt down, smiling at him. "Hey, Ethan, I'm your grandpa." His eyes widened. "Grandpa?" Anna laughed. "Yes, that's right. Grandpa John." For the first time in years, laughter filled my chest without effort. It felt right. Later that day, we sat on the porch just like old times. Anna sipped her coffee while Ethan ran around the yard chasing butterflies. "So," I said, watching her smile, "you're really doing this? A new job, a son, a new start." She nodded. "Yeah, I think I'm finally ready." For a long time, I felt like life had ended that day I walked out of Liam's house, but then I realized maybe that was the day it actually began. Her words struck deep. I smiled. "You sound like your old man." She grinned. "Maybe. Or maybe I just learned from him." That evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, she turned to me. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Have you heard from Mom?" I froze for a second. "No, not since that day she left." Anna hesitated. "I got a letter from her." My heart thudded. "A letter?" She nodded. "She's in Seattle, working at a community shelter. She said she's been sober, stable, and wants to make amends. not to start over just to apologize. Properly. I was silent for a long time. Anna added gently, "She asked if you'd be willing to meet. Just once." I leaned back, staring into the darkening sky. "Do you think I should?" "I think," Anna said softly, "it's not about what she deserves. It's about what you deserve peace." Days passed. The letter stayed on my desk, unopened at first, like a ghost I wasn't ready to face. But eventually, curiosity or maybe closure got the better of me. It wasn't long or dramatic, just a simple handwritten note. "John, I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know that I've been trying to become someone I can live with again. You don't owe me forgiveness, but I wanted to thank you for the years you gave me and for the strength I found after losing you. I hope you and Anna are well. That's enough for me. Clara." For the first time, I felt something shift inside. Not love, not longing, just peace. Maybe that's what forgiveness really is, not letting someone back in, but letting them go. 2 months later, I got another surprise. I was sitting in my backyard one afternoon fixing an old bench when Anna came running out with her phone. "Dad, you're not going to believe this." I looked up, startled. "What's wrong?" She smiled wide. "Mom's coming to town." I blinked. "What?" "She's volunteering at a charity event this weekend, the same one my art center is part of. She asked if she could see Ethan and you." My tools clattered from my hands. "Anna, too." "No," she interrupted softly. "You don't have to decide now. But maybe it's time, Dad. You've both spent too long looking back." Her words lingered long after she left. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories flooded in, the laughter, the fights, the silence, the door closing for the last time. And yet, somewhere in all that, there was still a small ember of humanity left. I sighed. "Maybe it's time," I whispered to the empty room. The charity event was held in the town hall, bright banners, children running around, laughter echoing in the air. It was the kind of place that reminded you life moves on, no matter what's broken. I walked through the crowd, feeling strangely nervous. My heart pounded as I spotted her across the room. Clara. She was standing near a donation table, handing out flyers, smiling gently at people who passed by. She looked older, yes, but softer, calmer, like someone who had finally stopped running from herself. When she saw me, her eyes widened. For a moment, she froze. Then she walked toward me slowly. "John," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "Clara." Neither of us knew what to say. The noise around us faded. It felt like the whole world paused. She finally whispered, "Thank you for coming." "I wasn't sure I would," I admitted. "I wasn't sure you should," she said with a sad smile, "but I'm glad you did." We found a quiet bench outside, under a tree. The air was cool, the sky golden with late afternoon light. "I heard about the shelter," I said after a moment. "You're doing good work." She nodded. "It helps. Being useful again. Being human again." There was silence. Not the bitter kind this time, the kind that lets truth breathe. "I read your letter," I said finally. Her eyes softened. "I didn't expect you to." "I almost didn't," I said honestly. "But I'm glad I did." She swallowed. "I never meant for things to end like they did. I know words mean nothing now, but I am proud of you, John, for surviving what I destroyed." I looked at her not with anger, but with a strange, quiet compassion. We both survived. "That's something." She nodded, blinking back tears. "Do you ever think about what might have been?" I sighed. "Sometimes. But then I remember what is enough." A small voice suddenly called out, "Grandma!" We both turned. Ethan was running toward us, Anna following behind. Clara knelt down, tears flooding her eyes as she hugged him tightly. "You must be Ethan." He smiled. "Mom says you used to bake cookies." Clara laughed through her tears. "That's right. Maybe I'll bake you some next time." I stood back, watching. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't meant to be. But in that small, fragile moment, something in the air shifted. The wounds didn't vanish, but they stopped bleeding. Later, Anna came to stand beside me. "She's changed, hasn't she?" "Yes," I said quietly. "So have we." She smiled softly. "You did it, Dad. You let go." I looked at her, my daughter, my strength, my reason. I had to, because hate is too heavy to carry for a lifetime. Anna nodded. "Mom said she's moving again to work with a shelter full-time." "She's not coming back here, I figured," I said. "Are you okay with that?" I smiled faintly. "I am, because for the first time in a long time, I know how to live without looking back." That night, after they left, I sat on the porch again. The wind was soft, carrying the faint scent of rain. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the pain, the rebuilding, the forgiveness. And I realized something. Revenge isn't about hurting them. It's about healing yourself, about becoming someone so at peace that their actions no longer define you. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Clara, for teaching me how to start over." A few months later, life had settled into a peaceful rhythm again. Ethan started calling me Grandpa J. Anna's art center grew, and she began hosting exhibitions for young artists. One evening, as I was locking up my small home office, I found an old photo album buried in a box pictures from before the storm. Family trips, birthdays, laughter frozen in time. I smiled, not with sadness this time, but with gratitude, because even broken stories have beautiful chapters. I placed the album on the shelf, next to a new one filled with pictures of Anna and Ethan, two generations that refused to let bitterness win. And as I turned off the lights, I whispered one last line to myself, a truth I had earned the hard way. Sometimes, life doesn't give you back what you lost. It gives you something better, peace. You know, they say life comes full circle. At first, I never believed that. I thought some things, some wounds just stayed open forever. But standing there one autumn morning, watching the leaves turn gold and fall like little pieces of time, I realized something. Even broken hearts have seasons. And mine was finally in spring again. Months had passed since I last saw Clara. She'd written once just a small postcard from Oregon. "John, the shelter here feels like home. I'm grateful you met me that day. It gave me the courage to keep doing better. I wish you peace, always. C." I kept that postcard on the fridge not as a memory of her, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain. And that, I'd learned, was the real victory. One evening, Anna came by after work, Ethan skipping happily at her side. She brought a stack of paintings from her art center. "Dad," she said excitedly, "we're planning a town exhibition next month, something to bring people together. The theme is second chances. I want you to be there." I smiled. "Of course I will. That sounds beautiful." "You'll like it," she said, placing the paintings on the table. "It's about people who broke but built again." I looked at her, my daughter, who once cried herself to sleep after betrayal. Now she was helping others paint their way back to life. She'd become everything I'd hoped she would, strong, wise, kind. And I couldn't have been prouder. The weeks leading up to the exhibition flew by. Anna was busy planning every detail, while Ethan made a hobby out of sneaking paint onto his hands and pretending to be an artist. Every time I saw him, I saw hope, the kind that doesn't come from perfection, but from innocence. He'd often sit beside me and ask questions like, "Grandpa J, did you ever feel sad when you were little? Or do people stop loving each other when they fight?" And every time I'd smile softly and say, "Sometimes they do, Ethan. But if they really loved each other, they learn to love in new ways even if it's from far away." He'd nod, pretending to understand, but I knew those words would mean something to him one day. The night of the exhibition arrived. The town hall glowed with soft lights and laughter. Art covered every wall, portraits, landscapes, and abstract splashes of emotion. Anna stood at the center, radiant in a navy dress, greeting guests and guiding them through the stories behind each painting. When I walked in, she turned and smiled. "There you are. I was starting to think you'd skip the fancy part." I laughed. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She led me to a special section near the stage, a series of paintings depicting a single tree in different stages: blooming, wilting, breaking, regrowing. I stood in silence, staring. The last painting showed the same tree, scarred but strong, surrounded by sunlight. "What do you think?" she asked. "It's perfect," I whispered. "Just like life." She nodded. "It's called The Tree That Stayed." As the evening went on, people admired her work, praised her story, and shared their own. And for the first time, I realized something: every person in that hall had a story of betrayal, of loss, of rebuilding. We were all walking proofs that pain doesn't end us. It shapes us. Then, just as the speeches were ending, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. Clara. She was standing quietly at the back, hair tied neatly, eyes glistening as she watched Anna speak on stage. For a moment my heart stuttered, not from longing, but from recognition of a chapter finally closed. After the event, as people began leaving, she approached slowly. "John," she said softly, almost as if afraid to disturb the peace around us. "Clara," I replied, calm and steady. "I didn't want to intrude," she said, "but Anna invited me. She said it might mean something to see what we all survived." I nodded. "It does." She smiled faintly. "You look well." "So do you," I said. And I meant it. We stepped outside, where the night air was crisp and quiet. The distant sound of laughter faded behind us. "I'm leaving for Oregon again next week," Clara said. "The shelter offered me a permanent position." "That's good," I said sincerely. "I'm glad you found your place." She looked down, fidgeting with her ring finger, the one that once held the symbol of our life together. "It took me a long time to stop running from myself," she whispered. "You helped with that." I met her gaze. "We both had to learn the hard way." She smiled through tears. "Thank you, John. For everything, even for walking away. I think that's what saved me." I nodded slowly. "Sometimes love means letting someone go, even if it breaks you." We stood there for a long moment. Then, with a small nod, she said, "Goodbye." "Goodbye, Clara," I whispered. And just like that, she turned and walked away, not like someone leaving, but like someone finally going home. The next morning, I sat on the porch again, sipping my coffee as the sunrise painted the horizon in gold. For once, there was no weight in my chest, just stillness, the kind that feels earned. Anna came out with Ethan, both still in their pajamas. "Morning, Grandpa," Ethan shouted, running to sit on my lap. "Morning, champ," I said with a grin. "Sleep well?" He nodded, eyes bright. "Mom said we're going to plant trees today." Anna smiled. "A little tradition for the art center planting hope." I chuckled. "Then let's do it right." We spent that morning digging a small patch in the garden, placing a sapling in the middle, a young oak tree. Anna handed Ethan the watering can, helping him pour water gently over the roots. As I watched them, I felt a strange emotion rise, not sorrow, not regret, but gratitude. Because somehow, through every heartbreak and mistake, we'd found our way back to each other. Not as the family we once were, but as the family we were meant to become. That evening, as the tree swayed gently in the breeze, Anna asked quietly, "Dad, do you ever think about what if things hadn't gone wrong?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "No," I said softly, "because if things hadn't gone wrong, they wouldn't have gone right either." She looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I mean, sometimes the broken road is the only one that leads you home." Her eyes softened and she hugged me tight. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart," I whispered. Weeks turned into months. The oak tree grew strong, its roots deep and steady, much like us. Anna's art center flourished. Ethan started school, coming home every day with stories about his new friends. And me? I found a quiet happiness in helping around, volunteering at local workshops, teaching kids to build birdhouses, fix benches, small things that made the world a little less lonely. One day, as I was cleaning the porch, Anna came out holding her phone. "Dad, you've got to see this." It was a message from Clara. "Hi, John. I just wanted to share something." We planted trees at the shelter today for families starting over. I thought you'd like that. Thank you for giving me the chance to start again. Clara. I smiled, looking out at our own oak tree. Yeah, I murmured. Full circle. That night, I sat alone under the stars, the wind cool against my face. And as I looked up, I thought about every twist, every heartbreak, every lesson. It all led here to peace. Maybe that's what life really is. Not a perfect story, but a collection of scars that remind you you lived, you loved, and you learned. I closed my eyes and whispered into the quiet night. We forgive, not because they deserve it, but because we deserve to be free. A few weeks later, Anna's Art Center launched a special campaign, the Full Circle Project. It aimed to help people rebuild after emotional loss, offering art therapy, community talks, and shared stories of survival. She asked me to speak at the opening. At first I refused, but she insisted. So, on that day, standing in front of a small crowd, I took a deep breath and said, "For years, I thought betrayal was the end of my story. But I was wrong. It was the beginning, the start of becoming who I was meant to be. Life will break you, yes. People will disappoint you. But if you hold on not to anger, but to hope you'll find something even stronger than revenge, you'll find yourself." The room was silent, and then applause, soft, heartfelt, real. That night, as Anna hugged me goodbye and Ethan waved from the car, I realized something I'd waited years to feel. I was free. Free from the pain, the anger, the questions. I went inside, sat down, and looked out at the oak tree swaying gently in the moonlight. Its leaves shimmered like tiny memories, painful, beautiful, alive. And, for the first time, I smiled, not because the pain was gone, but because I had survived it. They say legacies aren't built in grand gestures. They're built quietly in the way you treat people, the way you rise after falling, the way you love even when it hurts. I never set out to leave one. I was just a man trying to put himself back together after everything shattered. But sometimes, when you stop chasing what broke you, you end up creating something stronger. It had been 3 years since the night I last saw Clara. 3 years since Anna's Art Center opened its doors, changing the lives of people who once thought their stories were over. Life had found its rhythm again. Slow, steady, peaceful. Most mornings started the same. I'd sit on the porch with my coffee, Ethan's laughter echoing from the backyard as Anna got ready for work. The oak tree we planted together had grown tall now, its branches stretching like open arms, leaves whispering in the wind. It wasn't just a tree anymore. It was a witness to pain, to healing, to rebirth. And somehow, it felt like a mirror of us all. One morning, as I sipped my coffee, Ethan ran up to me holding something behind his back. He grinned mischievously. "Guess what, Grandpa Jay?" "What?" I asked, playing along. He revealed a small drawing. It was the oak tree, surrounded by stick figures. One tall one with gray hair, one woman with long curls, and a little boy beside them. "That's us," he said proudly. "I made it for school. The theme was, 'My favorite place in the world.'" I smiled, heart tightening in that familiar, bittersweet way. "And why's this your favorite place, champ?" He thought for a second, then said softly, "Because here, everybody's happy." I looked at him, really looked, and saw how true that was. He'd never known the chaos we once lived through. He was growing up surrounded by love that was steady, safe, honest. And that, more than anything, made everything we'd survived worth it. Later that week, Anna came home carrying a small box. "I found something while cleaning the art center storage," she said, placing it on the table. It was covered in dust, sealed with old tape. I opened it carefully. Inside were old family photos. Anna as a child, Clara and I on our wedding day, birthday parties, vacations, fragments of a life that once felt like forever. Anna sat beside me, silent for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You know, for a long time, I hated these." I turned to her, surprised. "Why?" "Because every time I looked at them, I remembered the ending," she said. "The fights, the silence, the way everything fell apart." She traced a photo with her finger, one of us at the beach, all smiles, sunburnt and carefree. "But now," she continued, "I see something else. I see where I came from, the love that existed before the hurt, the lessons that shaped me." She looked up at me. I think that's what healing really means, Dad. Seeing the whole picture, not just the broken part. I nodded, emotion swelling in my throat. You're right, sweetheart. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering differently. She smiled softly, tears glistening. You taught me that. As days turned into weeks, I started volunteering more at the art center, fixing frames, repairing tables, sometimes just sitting with people who came there to talk. Most of them were strangers carrying invisible bruises, women who'd been betrayed, men who'd lost families, young people trying to rebuild their sense of worth. And every time I sat with them, I saw a piece of my old self, hurt, angry, lost. But I also saw something else, the same quiet strength that carried me through. One evening, a woman named Rachel came by. She'd recently gone through a painful divorce and couldn't stop crying as she tried to explain her story. I don't understand, she sobbed. How can someone promise forever and just stop meaning it? I handed her a tissue and said gently, because sometimes people change before their words do. She looked up, confused. What do you mean? It means, I said softly, that you can't hold someone to the version of themselves they no longer are, but you can hold on to the version of you that survived it. She blinked, then nodded slowly. That night before she left, she said, Thank you. I think I needed to hear that. And as she walked away, I realized I'd finally become what I wished I'd had years ago, a voice of calm in someone else's storm. One afternoon, Anna called me into her office. Dad, sit, she said, smiling nervously. I want to show you something. On the desk was a brochure, draft bold letters read, The Legacy Foundation. It's a project we've been working on, she explained. A program for families healing after betrayal counseling, support, art therapy, even financial planning for those starting over. I was stunned. Anna, that's incredible. She smiled, tears threatening to fall. It's because of you, Dad. You showed me that rebuilding doesn't stop with one person, it spreads. I felt my chest tighten, emotion rushing in. All those years I thought I'd failed her, failed our family, but here she was, turning our pain into purpose. She reached for my hand. You didn't just survive, Dad. You transformed. And because of that, I did too. That night, I sat by the oak tree again, thinking about everything. The air was cool, stars blinking faintly above. And for the first time, I felt a deep, peaceful pride. Not in what I'd achieved, but in what we'd become. You see, legacy isn't built from perfection. It's built from persistence. From getting up one more time than life knocks you down. From choosing kindness even when bitterness would be easier. A few months later, Anna invited me to speak at the Legacy Foundation's launch event. At first, I hesitated. I never liked the spotlight. But, she said, Dad, people need to hear what healing sounds like. So, I agreed. The day of the event, the hall was filled with people, survivors, families, friends. Art covered the walls again, every piece representing a story, a scar, a victory. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the stage slowly, heart pounding, palms slightly trembling. Then I looked at the crowd faces filled with hope, fear, courage, and I began. I used to think betrayal was the end of everything. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of understanding myself. Pain doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to your strength, your limits, your truth. If someone broke you, don't let that be the last chapter. Because the person who hurt you may have ended a story, but only you can begin the next one. The audience was silent, not the kind of silence that's empty, but the kind that's listening. And in that moment, I felt something sacred: connection, shared humanity. Forgiveness, unspoken but understood. After the speech, people came to me one by one, thanking me, hugging me, sharing their stories. I listened to each of them, realizing how many hearts walked around half-healed, just waiting for someone to say, "You're not alone." As I was about to leave, a familiar voice called from behind. "John," I turned. It was Clara. Older now, her hair streaked with silver, but her eyes calm. Clear, held no storm this time. She smiled gently. "You were wonderful up there." I nodded, returning the smile. "You came. Anna invited me," she said softly. "Said I should see what hope looks like." We both chuckled lightly. There was no tension anymore, no unfinished words. Just quiet understanding, two people who'd walked through fire and learned to stop burning. She handed me an envelope, something I wrote a while back. I wasn't sure I'd ever send it, but I think it's time. When I opened it later, the letter read, "Dear John, I used to think forgiveness meant pretending it didn't happen. Now I know it means looking at what happened and still choosing peace. You taught me that. Not through words, but through how you lived after I broke you. You became the kind of person I wish I'd been brave enough to be. Thank you for letting me find myself through your silence and for never letting bitterness win. Clara." I folded the letter carefully, heart heavy but full. Closure, at last, not in apology but in understanding. The following weekend, Ethan asked if he could plant another tree beside the old oak. "Why another one?" I asked. "Because," he said simply, "Mom says new things grow better next to strong roots." I laughed, kneeling to help him dig. "Your mom's right." As we planted the sapling, I realized something the first tree was about healing. This one was about hope. That night, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Anna joined me on the porch. "Do you ever miss her?" she asked quietly. I thought for a long moment. "I miss who we were, not who we became." She nodded, understanding. "I think she found peace." "I know she did," I said softly. "And so did I." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're our oak tree, Dad," I smiled. "And you're my roots." As the stars appeared above us, I whispered to myself, "Pain ends when you stop running from it. And love begins again when you stop fearing it." Everything had come full circle. From betrayal to forgiveness. From heartbreak to healing. From endings to beginnings. And in that quiet, golden evening, I knew my story wasn't about loss anymore. It was about legacy. Not the kind written in history books, but the kind that lives on in hearts, in laughter, in trees, in second chances. They say every story has an ending. But what if some endings aren't really endings at all? What if they're just quiet beginnings disguised as goodbyes? When I look back now, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see awakening. I see strength born from breaking. And I see how the deepest cuts life gives you are often the ones that carve out who you're meant to be. It had been 5 years since that night outside my son-in-law's house, the night everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family shattered into silence. 5 years since I walked away from my wife, from the wreckage of our past, and decided to start over not with revenge, but with clarity. People say time heals, but that's only half true. Time doesn't heal what you refuse to face. It only hides it under layers of noise until one day, when you're finally quiet enough, it all comes rushing back waiting for you to make peace with it. That's what I did, and it changed everything. One cool autumn evening, Anna came home holding an envelope in her hands. She looked older now, not in age but in wisdom. The kind of calm that only people who've walked through storms can wear. "Dad," she said softly, "I think this is for you." I took the envelope, noticing the familiar handwriting. It was from Clara again. Inside was a small card and a single photograph, a family picture from years ago. Clara had written beneath it, "Some things are meant to be remembered not for what they were, but for what they taught us." I stared at the photo for a long time. There we were young, laughing, untouched by the weight of betrayal or regret. And yet there was something beautiful about that frozen moment, because it reminded me that life is not a single story. It's a collection of moments, some that break you, others that rebuild you, all weaving together into something called growth. I didn't feel anger anymore, just gratitude. For the lessons, for the pain, for the love that once was, and for the strength I'd never have found without losing everything first. One morning, I sat by the oak tree again, our family tree. Ethan, now a teenager, was sitting beside me, sketching something quietly in his notebook. "What are you drawing, champ?" I asked. He grinned shyly. "You?" I chuckled. "Me? Why?" he shrugged. "Because my teacher said to draw a hero." I smiled, a little surprised. "A hero? I think you've got the wrong guy." He looked up, serious now. "No, I don't. You always say heroes don't wear capes. They just don't give up." I looked at him, and in that moment I realized I wasn't just healing for myself anymore. I was healing for him, for Anna, for anyone who'd ever been taught that broken things stay broken. Because the truth is, they don't. They evolve. They turn pain into purpose, scars into stories. As Ethan went back to sketching, I whispered something to myself almost like a prayer. Let him grow kind, not bitter. Let him see love as something brave, not fragile. And let him remember endings aren't failures, they're directions. Months later, I got an unexpected message. It was from Clara's sister. She told me Clara had been struggling with her health and was asking to see me one last time. At first, I hesitated. Old memories flooded back, not the warm ones, but the cold, heavy ones I'd worked so hard to bury. But something inside whispered, "Go." When I walked into that hospital room, she looked smaller, quieter, but peaceful. "John," she said softly, smiling. "You came." "I did," I said. "How are you feeling?" She chuckled weakly. Old, regretful, human. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It wasn't awkward. It was still, like the world was holding its breath for us. Then she said, "You know, I used to think love was about possession, about having someone who stays no matter what. But it's not. It's about presence, about who shows up when you need them most." I nodded slowly. I used to think the same. She reached out her hand and I took it. "John, I'm sorry. For everything. I forgave you a long time ago," I said quietly. I just didn't know how to say it. Her eyes filled with tears. "I never stopped caring about you, even when I didn't deserve to." "I know," I whispered. "And that's enough." We sat there for a long time, two people who had broken each other once, now finding peace not in forgetting, but in finally understanding. When I left that room, I didn't feel the weight I expected. I felt light, free, like every unanswered question had finally been whispered back to me softly, like forgiveness. Months after Clara passed, Anna invited me to a small gathering at the Legacy Foundation. It had grown more volunteers, more families helped, more stories rewritten. As I walked through the hall, I saw a mural on the wall painted by children who had attended the program. At the center was a large oak tree, its roots wrapping around painted words that read, "From pain, we rise." Anna joined me, her eyes proud. "It's our motto now," she said. "Every person who comes here, they're not just healing. They're learning how to grow again." I nodded. "You've built something incredible, Anna." She smiled softly. "No, Dad, we did." Later that evening, she handed me a microphone. "Say something," she whispered. I took a deep breath and began. "When betrayal breaks your world, it doesn't destroy your life. It just forces you to rebuild it differently. The truth is, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom. Because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to feel it. You don't forgive for them. You forgive so you can breathe again." The audience was silent, tears glistening in more than a few eyes. And I knew not all pain vanishes, but it can transform into something that matters. A year later, Ethan graduated high school. When he stepped on that stage, tall and confident, I felt my heart swell. After the ceremony, he came running up to me, holding his diploma high. "Grandpa Jay, I did it." "You sure did," I said, hugging him tight. He laughed. "You know what I'm going to do next?" "What's that?" "I want to study psychology, help people who've been through hard stuff, like Mom helps them through art." My throat tightened. That was it. That was the legacy. Not buildings or money, but hearts, shaped by empathy. "Your grandma would have been proud," I said quietly. He smiled. "I think she's watching. From that oak tree in the sky." I laughed softly. "Maybe she is." That night, the whole family sat under our real oak tree fairy lights wrapped around its trunk, soft music playing, laughter echoing in the cool air. Anna's friends, Ethan's classmates, even some of the foundation's volunteers were there. A family not by blood alone, but by shared healing. As I looked around, I realized something beautiful. I had spent so long chasing revenge that I almost forgot. The sweetest revenge is peace. Peace that comes when you refuse to become what broke you. When you stop proving your worth to those who couldn't see it and start living for those who do. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone under the tree again, just me, the stars, and the sound of wind through the branches. I whispered into the night. If life had given me what I wanted, I would have never learned what I needed. Because the truth is, betrayal isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst thing is forgetting who you are because of it. I lost everything once: my trust, my marriage, my peace. But in losing it, I found myself, and that's the real miracle of pain. It strips away the noise, the pretending, the fear, until all that's left is you. The real you. The one that doesn't need revenge to feel whole. The one that doesn't need validation to feel worthy. The one that finally understands. Closure isn't something you wait for. It's something you decide to give yourself. So what did I learn? That sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who unknowingly shape your greatest strength. That love isn't measured by who stays, but by who grows. And that forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. It's saying I'm okay, because real power isn't in breaking others. It's in refusing to let them break you. I once thought revenge would make me feel better. But peace, quiet, steady, lasting peace, that's the real victory. And if you're listening right now, still holding on to anger, still replaying the moment they betrayed you, let go. Not for them, for you. Because your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And maybe one day you'll look back like I did and say, that heartbreak didn't destroy me. It introduced me to myself. If this story touched your heart, if you felt something in these words, remember, we all fall, we all break, but what defines us is how we rise. Every scar tells a story. Every tear plants a seed. And sometimes the most painful goodbyes lead to the most beautiful beginnings. So, before you go, don't forget to like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this and ring the bell icon, because you never know when the next story might heal a part of your heart too. From pain, we rise. From love, we rebuild. And from forgiveness, we begin again. The end.